Welcome to the BYU Family History Library webinar series. My name is Bela Gandhi and I will be your host for this webinar. We invite you to participate in our polls on the screen. Let us know where you're listening from and what genealogy topics you are interested in hearing about. In way of announcements today, our next webinar is entitled What's New in the Family History Guide, July 2018. With Bob Taylor, which is scheduled for July 6th at 4 p.m. Mountain Daylight Time. For those of you who are having trouble accessing our webinars on YouTube, we have a new platform that allows you to play our YouTube videos in church buildings. The link to the platform is on the main page of our website, which I have put in the announcement box to the left. Please feel free to check it out. And if you have any questions or comments, email us at fhl_webinars@byu.edu. James Tanner has a BA in Spanish and an MA in Linguistics from the University of Utah. He received a Juris Doctor degree in law from Arizona State University. He worked for 39 years as an Arizona trial attorney. He previously owned a retail computer business and an Apple Macintosh software company. James has over 35 years of experience in genealogical research and is a blogger for Genealogy Star and the blog Rejoice and Be Exceeding Glad. He served for 10 years as a missionary at the Mesa, Arizona FamilySearch Library and is currently serving a family history mission in Maryland. He is the co-author or author of over 25 books on genealogical research and has presented at expos and conferences around the US and Canada. James has 7 children and 34 grandchildren. James Tanner will be presenting today's webinar, and it will be entitled Technology and Genealogy, a Perfect Match. We'd like to thank everyone for joining us and remind you as James gets things loaded up here about our comments and question box on the left hand of the screen. Any questions that you have, write them in and we'll make sure that they get answered by the end of the presentation. James, whenever you're ready, feel free to take it away.
Okay, howdy. Hope everyone can hear me, but let us know in the chat if there's a problem with the sound. I'm glad to be here for BYU Family History Library. It's been a while since I've given a webinar. We'll have another one scheduled for each month that's coming up. And you can view these webinars after they are recorded and uploaded on the BYU Family History Library YouTube channel. So you go to youtube.com and you look up BYU Family History Library and you find all of the 360 plus videos that we have uploaded here. Today we're going to talk about technology and family history, a perfect match. Well, yeah, I mean, I would guess you would think it was a perfect match, but like every perfect match, there's always some difficulties. And right now we do have some significant difficulties in matching to technology for genealogy. But things are rapidly changing and, from my perspective, rapidly improving. So we're going to take a look here at some of the things that we need to touch the base on today. Starting out with RootsTech, RootsTech 2018 in Salt Lake City, Utah at the Salt Palace. And this is actually the first of all the RootsTechs going back to 2011 or so that I have not been attending because we are here in Maryland, working at the Maryland State Archives, digitizing records that will ultimately go up on FamilySearch.org. And that will be the subject of a future webinar. In fact, I think we have it planned for August or September or something like that. So watch, and we will talk about our job at the Maryland State Archives. Okay, well, RootsTech is a good place to go to get an idea of the technology that is coming out, being planned, and is being presented at that conference. There were this past RootsTech earlier in 2018, there were 17,000 plus attendees. They had 4 days of classes, exhibits, and networking. A lot of people come for the classes. Obviously, that's a big draw. I think from my perspective, I come for the exhibits because I like to see and talk to the developers and all the people who are there who are also interested in the technology of genealogy, and networking to see many of the people that I meet only online, and it's really fun to get together and meet people that I know their names. I've talked to them many times online and have never met them in person, so that's kind of a great opportunity to get to know people. Actually, the whole conference here starts with a pre-conference. It starts with the BYU Family History Technology Workshop, which usually is held the Tuesday before the Wednesday when RootsTech begins. And that conference has been going on for many more years, actually, than RootsTech. And this is an opportunity for the staff and students and other interested people to get together and talk about the real technical things, the side of genealogy. And some of the things that they're going to talk about it was held this year on the 27th of February, 2018. Kind of have to watch for it on the BYU Brigham Young University website, and usually shows up a month and a half or so before the actual conference. It's a one-day conference, and it's held in Provo at the Brigham Young University, and it's only about 45 miles south of Salt Lake. If while you're there, you could have the opportunity of visiting the Family History Library on campus, where we've been working for the last few years before coming on our full-time mission. Okay, so what is the technology workshop? It's basically aimed at developers and academics. I think that if you have a pretty good technological background, you'd enjoy listening to the conference. I've seen people come to the conference and just sit there bewildered at what they were talking about, and basically didn't understand anything that was being said. So it's not really for the general public type person who is just beginning genealogy, but if you do have a good, strong technology background in computers and other things like that, you will really enjoy this conference. But the interesting things about the conference is that it is aimed at presenting. What they do here is present their professional papers from the university. These would be students who are presenting their study papers, like their thesis papers and things like that, and the staff and faculty of BYU, and also people from the developer community around the world. We've had people from all over the world, Germany and England and Israel and all sorts of places come to this particular conference. So some of the topics, one of the topics this year was extracting genealogical data from books. The concept here is that, of course, you can do what's called optical character recognition, and with optical character recognition, you can have the characters transferred into text, which can then be viewed on a computer. But on the other hand, the problem is you've got to go through the whole book or do searching through the book individually. And one of the things that would be helpful is to have things like record hints, which are now available on many of the large online websites, that would tell you that your grandfather, your great-grandfather, whoever your relative, was mentioned in this book, because they had not only gone through the book and determined that the name appeared, but that they would determine that that name was in the context of something that had genealogical significance. So that's kind of the important thing about that topic. Another topic was using geocoordinates to better match records. One of the things that's happening, for example, on FamilySearch.org is that we're standardizing places and dates. And the standardizing, a lot of people think of it as kind of housekeeping. What you're doing is trying to clean up the records. But the effect of that is when you actually standardize a place, that place is then attached to geographic coordinates on the face of the earth. So that helps to identify people and records who may be more pertinent. One of the big things that I talk about and write about frequently is the idea of using the places to help you identify clusters of ancestors. And so this is a way to integrate geo-coordinates or GPS coordinates into matching better records. Improved blur detection in historical document images with a neural network. Okay, maybe that sounds like not like much English in there, but what that means a lot to us who are out here in the field digitizing records, because we get a lot of errors, which are false errors. And they're really telling us that there's a blur or there's a movement in the document when the document's just sitting absolutely still on our table taking picture. And it's basically picking up that blur detection from smears or things that are spilled or stains or mold or whatever that's on the document itself. So they're trying to improve the technology to do that. The last one here is called open source PyTorch library for handwriting recognition. Now, this is one of the big things that is going on at Brigham Young University. Because for some years now, they have been working on handwriting recognition. We'll talk about that a little bit more in just a second, and here it is. This is the cutting edge technology that we're trying to, that's trying to be developed by Brigham Young University and many other people around the world. This is something we would all just love to have as genealogists, is to have the ability for the computer to look at the handwriting and identify the names, and then the names would not, it would speed up the process of indexing all of these records, make the indexing more effective. Well, Brigham Young University at the Family History Lab has now increased handwriting recognition in some worldwide competitions to a 98% accuracy level. Now, that's only part of the issue. The rest of the issue for handwriting recognition is identifying that it is handwriting, that whatever's on a page that the computer is looking at, or the scanned image of a page, that digitized image that it's asked to identify, is that identifying the handwriting and identifying where on the page the handwriting is. And those are other great, they're objectives that are going to have yet to be completely developed. So we're still not to the high level of handwriting recognition for genealogical purposes. It's getting there, and it's increasingly accurate and increasingly being used every year. So this will not be, I would not be surprised that at some point one or the other of the major online genealogical companies just starts using handwriting recognition without much fanfare. Going back to RootsTech 2018, it's basically innovations in genealogy and technology. It's plus technology. A lot of classes, a lot of people. Some of it is more entertaining than perhaps directly informative, but it is a wonderful opportunity to get together and to find out what's going on out there in the world. Now, this past conference that was earlier this year, all of the big news that came out of that conference was MyHeritage. It's was just abundantly clear that was where the innovation was coming from. The other companies were all there: FamilySearch, Ancestry, Find My Past, and many other companies there. But those things that were basically going to change the future and the landscape of the future for genealogy were coming from MyHeritage. Now, MyHeritage is a company that is headquartered in a town outside of Tel Aviv, Israel. It's owned an Israeli-owned company, and it is debatably the largest online website for genealogy today. Okay, so here were some of the things that were announced at the conference. First of all, there was a tree sync for those who were members of FamilySearch and also used MyHeritage, primarily aimed at the members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, or the LDS members. But it was introduced at the conference. It was a complete synchronization. You basically could import basically bring in 4 generations of your FamilySearch family tree into a new MyHeritage family tree. I got involved with it at the beta initial time just before it was introduced, and it's a fabulous program. I was absolutely thrilled to the fact that I could use all the record hints that I was getting on MyHeritage and move them over seamlessly over to my FamilySearch family tree. That was the good news. The bad news is that it ran into some programming issues. It was in beta, and now we're still waiting for it to get resolved and be put back up online. So it's really right now. It's there. It's visible on my program, but it is not. It's not actively synchronizing between MyHeritage and FamilySearch. That ran into some unforeseen programming problems. So it's a complicated issue. It's one issue that I think is probably one of the major issues that confronts the genealogical community today, is the fragmentation of all of the different programs and all of the different online family tree programs, and the inability to adequately move data between those between those programs. So this was a big step, and it's still waiting to become a big step. The next biggest announcement at the conference was a science team, MyHeritage science team research that was done, and it was an article that was published in the journal Science. And this basically was a study that was done by MyHeritage, and they took information from the MyHeritage family trees and used a panel of genealogical experts and compiled using that information, a verified family tree of 13 million people. And that huge family tree, I mean, just an immeasurably large family tree. Then they used that basis, the information that was contained in that family tree, to do some analysis. And the analysis of the family tree turned out some tremendous things. Now, this particular article is available online. You can read it. I've done I've written about it on my blog, so if you went out and looked at Genealogy Star and did a search for the MyHeritage science team's research or the science, and you would find that online. Some other announcements from MyHeritage. MyHeritage has been offering a DNA testing for a number of years now, and when you do a test from MyHeritage or upload your data from some other test to your MyHeritage web family tree on myheritage.com, then you will get DNA matches with other people who have uploaded their DNA testing. This is what the DNA companies are doing with the online. In addition, what MyHeritage has done is that they're going from one to many on a chromosome browser. In other words, they're going to give you a visual and a statistical and the identification of the exact portions of your DNA that are matched and how they match with up to 5 other people. So when you go into your, have your DNA on MyHeritage, you can see how you are related to someone and how someone else may be related to up to 5 to 6 total people, you and 5 other people. So for example, if you were, the problem that we face when we do a DNA test and they tell you that this person is your second cousin 2 generations removed or your 4th cousin or something like that, there's no way of actually knowing how you are related to that person. In other words, absent your family tree being matched up to their family tree, you're basically guessing how you're related, especially if the person that they're showing you're related to is a surname that you're not at all familiar with. You would have no way of knowing who their parents were or their grandparents or whoever it is that you are related to. So this will help to triangulate. In other words, give you more than one person. You can see how you're related to one person, and then you can see how that person is related to someone else that you're related to. And if you have 2 people that you're related to, you may be able to identify the common ancestor of all 3 of the people. And by having more people than that, up to the number allowed, and by substituting, you can begin to analyze and see who all these people may be. Now, what's going to happen in the future is that, as will happen, one of the main things that happened at RootsTech was a presentation given by the CEO of MyHeritage, who is Gilad Jepeth. And Gilad gave a presentation that lasted about an hour and a half and told what about some of the future that he was planning and that they were planning to do with MyHeritage. And one of the things that he outlined, and that is now sort of previewed by the article that was in Science magazine, is the ability to take the information in your family tree plus the sources, plus the matches you have to other family trees, plus the DNA information, and give you a chart showing your hypothetical or your presumed family connection back to the common ancestor that the DNA where the DNA may have originated. This is not available yet, but this is one of the high priorities of MyHeritage, is to develop this ability to identify the common ancestors. So this is something that is moving genealogy along at a rapid pace. We're really becoming much closer and closer to the concept that we can put information into a program online, like, for instance, FamilySearch Family Tree or Ancestry Family Tree or MyHeritage Family Trees. And once you have that information there, you should be able to connect to other people. Well, you do that through on MyHeritage, you do that through what are called smart matches. The smart matches tell you that you have other people who share the people who are in your ancestral family tree. But the accuracy of this increases greatly if you have a way to say that this not only does this person match up with you, but all of the records that they have on MyHeritage would indicate that there was a match. And then also that's confirmed by the fact that you share some genetic data with that person. So you're getting to the point where the accuracy and the believability of this will become more and more automatic, in a sense, because the program will go out and look for this information and provide it to you. The other thing that's important to understand is that MyHeritage has 2 things that are kind of interesting about the company. One is that they have more than 90 million people worldwide that are part of this program. That's right. And they also have 325 million. They announced just at RootsTech, they announced 325 million new historical records. Well, what's happened since then, that's 325 million new records in 1 week. But you can see here that this is the number of historical records that I checked with yesterday. It's 9 billion, 78 million plus historical records. The interesting thing about this number is that I revised this presentation 10 days ago, and in the last 10 days, that number has gone up more than 10 million, about 11 million records in 10 days. So effectively, at that rate right now, MyHeritage is adding about 1 million new records a day to their website. The number just goes up. It's just an astronomically large number of records. And all of these records are indexed. All of these records are searchable. Everything in there is being added as record matches to your family tree on MyHeritage. So what was the big news? Well, the big news at the conference, and the biggest news of all, is the ongoing digitization. And those records that I just pointed out that were being added to MyHeritage is just one indication. I have a friend here in Washington, D.C., who is the director of the Family History Center, and she is presently over in Greece, and she made an agreement with MyHeritage, and she had the connection over in Greece through her family line, and she's over there digitizing records. She should be through about now with digitizing a large number of records in Greece. These projects are going on all around the world. We're here in Maryland. We're digitizing probate records. I'm estimating that with the 4 cameras we have here in Maryland, that conservatively we'll probably digitize between 1.5 and 2 million records this year. And this is just an amazing amount of information that is going online, and the impact of that on genealogy is just immeasurable, because basically what we're looking at, and we always get a reaction to that number and that idea from this group of, a lot of genealogists come back with it and say, oh yes, but they haven't digitized everything, and oh, I still have to go to the courthouse in Ohio, or I have to look at I have to be down in the archives, or I need to go look for the records. That's absolutely true, but for the vast majority of people who are coming to genealogy who do not have extensive pedigrees, huge, long pedigree charts of thousands of individuals who are just coming and looking for their ancestors, they're finding that these records are now becoming more and more available. We're here working in Annapolis, Maryland, and I'm working with people coming into the local Family History Center, the Annapolis Family History Center. And for example, we have a number of people from Latin America, and it's just an amazing experience to have them come in and find out that records going back into the 1500s in many cases are completely available online on Family Search for them to search for their ancestors. It's just an amazing thing to sit down and begin to watch. The other day I was working with a young lady from Mexico, and there were record hints from Family Search that were connecting her to her Mexican ancestors. And as fast as she was clicking and putting in names and trying to work back on her family tree, which she had only 1 or 2 generations or 3 generations, she was getting more and more people who were finding more and more of her ancestors. And it was just an almost overwhelming experience. She just said, I can't believe this. This is just beyond my comprehension that this is happening. So these are the kinds of things that are occurring because of this ongoing digitization. There's so many records online now that are coming from websites that you may never even have, wouldn't even know to go look for. And they have huge collections of genealogical data. And it's not all just the big 4 or 5 genealogy programs out there. It's on other programs that have just digitized records, historical records, and those historical records turn out to be immeasurably valuable for genealogists. This is kind of a glimpse of Maryland State Archives, and as I mentioned, we'll probably digitize between 1.5 and 2 million images this year. I might have to revise that up a little bit because we're working through some of the procedural method type things, and we've been with some of the other volunteers who are working there, we've come up with some streamlined programs for handling the documents, and we may very well exceed those numbers because we're digitizing a lot more than we have in just the most recent past, in just the last couple of months. So this is an amazing thing, and this is why I wanted to do another webinar on this particular subject, is because the value of the records that we're digitizing is just overwhelming. We're doing primarily, and that's the whole project is for probate records. And probate is the court action that's taken when a person dies and has to dispose of the deceased person's property, and it goes to the heirs. Well, in Maryland and in many other states, particularly those that go back to colonies and the original colonies, these records go back clear into the 1600s, and they are amazingly detailed. The amount of information about families is just overwhelming. When the father died, for example, in Maryland, the father's estate went to the surviving spouse, if there was one, and to the children, but the children did not inherit directly if they were minors, if they were underage. And so in each of those cases, they had to appoint a guardian for the children, and those guardians had to be appointed by the court and report to the court about any payments that were made or distributions, and when they became of age, when the property was distributed to them. And all those records are available, and that's part of what we're digitizing. And hundreds and thousands of pages of these records listing all of the children in the family, their ages, and identifying the parents, and in many cases the grandparents. And you can see just generations of people that have lived here in Maryland. Talking to one of the people that I've been working with here at the Annapolis Family History Center, his family goes back to the early to the 1600s here in Maryland, and this kind of information is just going to benefit these people just immensely, and the number of people. And imagine that these are going all over the world. The digitization effort, just FamilySearch alone. I looked at the number just recently, and there are 316 cameras out doing digitizing like we're doing here in Maryland. Now, FamilySearch.org. I mean, I'm not trying to put anybody into any categories, because every one of the major companies out there is expanding rapidly and doing amazing things. Somebody has to be in the first place, obviously, and out in the front of the pack, but that's not mean that the rest of them aren't doing a tremendous amount of work. In this case, FamilySearch is digitizing millions of records every week, millions. You can go into and look at what's last updated, and you can see what's being added. Now, FamilySearch has, just within the last few months, has kind of split the way they've been putting records onto the website. The records that are indexed and the records that have been put into what are called the historical record collections. These record collections are the indexed records primarily. So they're the ones that are, if they're not yet indexed, they are the ones to be targeted to be indexed. And the records that are waiting to be indexed are being added directly to the catalog. We also keep hearing that all of the records on microfilm, which are 2.4 million rolls of microfilm, will be digitized in the next year or two. Now, I've been listening to them talk about this for quite a few years, a lot longer than just a year or two. And I think, if I remember correctly, that last year at RootsTech, there were also representatives of FamilySearch that said that they would be all digitized in the next year or two. So we're really basically doing that. They're just doing that as fast as they can. And if you watch the numbers that go in to the records, there are millions and millions of records being added just regularly. I get a list of the ones that are being added, all being indexed, and there's every week there's another list of records that are being added that are being indexed. Find My Past shouldn't be overlooked. Find My Past is the big British company that's headquartered over there in England and Scotland, and it is adding something that is extremely valuable for people who live in the United States or who have descendants of people who live in the United States. For many years, the Catholic records from the original colonies that go back for years and years and years have not been available outside of the Catholic archives. And these are the diocese archives on the eastern coast of the United States. And what's happening now is that Find My Past was able to get an agreement with a number of the Catholic dioceses, and is in the Archdiocese of New York and the Archdiocese of Philadelphia and Baltimore have been started, and they are putting millions of new Catholic records up on Find My Past. These are from the United States, not from England. They also have English Catholic records and Irish Catholic records. But just understanding that all of these companies are spending a tremendous effort to add these millions of records to their collections, just as many as you can possibly imagine occurring just constantly. Sort of one that may not have as high a visibility as some of the other companies, but is coming up in numbers and visibility, is a company called Jennynet.org. And Jennynet is a French company. If you have French ancestors, then this is the place where you go to look for French ancestors. But they are also adding records from around the world and from the United States and other places. And they have added a family tree. They've had a family tree for years, and they're now adding record hints to their family tree and other things that make it more valuable. But they have over 2 billion indexed individuals in their database. And they have a huge collection of digitized books from around the world, places in the world that you may not even think there would be any genealogical information from that they have available. This is a huge catalog of old books and newspapers and other things that they have on their collections, and they're growing very rapidly. So they're basically a website that is, if you identify them in the country of origin, then you're going to miss the significance of these websites, just because Find My Past is out of England and Scotland, but it's basically gathering records, lots of records from the United States. I failed to mention that Find My Past is also digitizing and indexing all of the marriage records that it can find in the United States. So they're creating a huge database of marriage records from the U.S. Very valuable records being added by these companies constantly. And I get email notifications from their blogs and their whatever that I sign up for. So I just get a constant stream of notifications of new records being added to all of these websites. We have a lot of other resources out there. We're not limited at all by the resources that are online. And those resources include the BYU Family History Library. Now they're bringing you this webinar, and they have a schedule of webinars coming up that you can go to their website. If you go look for BYU Family History Library online, you'll find this and the other resources available from the BYU Family History Library. Now, the BYU Family History Library is the second largest family history library in the world, and it is part of the Harold B. Lee Library on campus at Brigham Young University, which is a major university located in Provo, Utah, in the United States. And some of the things that are important to understand about the library is that it is open to anyone who wants to come and use the BYU Family History Library. It's open during the time that the library itself is open, is from around 7:30 in the morning until midnight, 6 days a week, a little bit later. I think it opens a little later on Saturday. But the volunteers who are LDS church missionaries, church service missionaries, are there from 9 o'clock in the morning through 9 o'clock at night on Monday through Thursday, and on 9 to 5 on Friday, and from 10 to 5 on Saturday. So that's the main hours of operation of the Family History Library, when people would be there to help. One thing that's a great benefit of BYU Family History Library is the tremendous technological equipment, the electronic equipment that they have available in the form of high-speed scanners, slide scanners, book scanners, all sorts of equipment, scanners to scan and digitize images on microfilm. And they have a very large microfilm collection. The resources there are the resources of the Harold B. Lee Library, which consists of over 4.5 million books and periodicals and records of just millions and millions of other records and things at the library. So it's a major place to go for genealogical research and help, and I can't say enough about it. So this is all these videos that we're doing are on, and mention it again, are on the BYU Family History Library YouTube channel. Now we have over 360, I guess 361. I don't know. I haven't looked on it today. I should have looked at it. Okay, now we're going to get into a little bit about really the big movement in genealogy for the last couple of years has been into the area of DNA testing. And probably the biggest impact that DNA testing would have is on individuals who are either have lost contact with their parents or other family members, or have never known who they were. In other words, foundlings and adopted people who who are not aware of where their ancestors are or who their ancestors are, meaning their bloodline ancestors as opposed to adopted parents. There's enough of this going on that I personally have talked to a number of people who have taken the DNA test from one of the DNA providers, and I'll put some of those up there right now on the screen. As you go to those as you take a DNA test, most of them are quite simple to take and have it analyzed. They give you an ethnicity, but they also tells you where you came from in general terms. If we have a couple of minutes at the end, I'll pull up my DNA test and we'll have a look at that real quick if that works out. If not, we'll get that in another presentation. But basically, once you begin the matches, then you may or may not be very, very surprised at what happens there. In the case of people that I've talked to personally, they have found parents, either their mother or their father, or both, and they've had to basically work through the I guess you'd say reestablishing or establishing a relationship with these people. I guess we have a tendency in this case to hear more about the really good news than we do about the ones that don't work out. But in a lot of cases, this has been a life-changing experience. As we go through this process of implementing more DNA, we may be very surprised. I was talking to one of the volunteers that I talked to at the Maryland State Archives, and they indicated that they had taken a DNA test, and they said the surprise was that they found out that that they had ancestry in one of the minorities that they were not aware of as a family. That can have also an interesting impact on the way you view your life and your view out there. So there's just a tremendous things going on right now in every part of genealogy as a subject and as a topic. Now we can even get into even more. Now, one of the technologies out there that's going to benefit you as a genealogist, if you are involved much in the program, in writing and trying to compile histories and things like that, or if you're doing oral interviews of people, is the voice recognition technology or VR technology. Voice recognition has been around for a long time. It started to be available clear back in the 1960s with IBM, and IBM kept developing their program, and others tried to develop voice recognition programs. Ultimately, the IBM program ended up in an online a program that's available online called, not an online program, it's one you purchase, called Dragon Naturally Speaking. There's also a Macintosh version of the program called Dragon Dictate. But these programs have increased over the years. I've been trying to use them because I can talk a lot faster than I can type, and I always wonder if they are accurate. And I tell you, when I started years ago, I would use it for a week or two, and then I'd become very frustrated and say, I can type faster than this, and I don't have so many errors. They kind of went away. Lately, I have turned more and more to voice recognition, and now it's actually been now about 4 or 5 years that it exceeded my ability to type in any other way. The difficulties are still a little bit available. The accuracy is exceedingly good, very, very good accuracy. There are still some problems. The problems are words that sound similar to each other, and so sometimes you have to be very careful in doing proofreading of what you type out. It's becoming more used, by the way, with smartphones. If you have a recently acquired smartphones like an iPhone or an Android phone, you'll know that there's voice recognition there because you can dictate text messages and put memorandums in and give directions and ask questions of the voice assistants like Siri and other voice assistants on Android. So really what you have is a very much developing voice recognition that'll benefit a lot of us who would rather talk than type. So this is a good way to go. Something that's going to affect genealogy tremendously in the near future, and is right now affecting it, is the existence of high-density SSD storage. SSDs are solid-state devices. You would think of them as flash drives or thumb drives. The drives the little drives that genealogists seem to carry in a lanyard around their neck. A lot of times I carry one just so people know I'm a genealogist. I don't know. But anyway, then you basically the high density storage. The reason why this is important is it's very, very reliable. Hard drives are still cheaper, a lot cheaper. You can get hard drives that are very inexpensive. I'll get to that in a second. But SSD storage is coming down, and right now they have developed solid-state drives that are up to 30 terabytes in size. That's 30,000 gigabytes. 300,000, excuse me, gigabyte, 100,000. It's 30,000 gigabytes in size. So that's significant. And that's probably more than anybody will possibly use. I use 8 terabyte drives now, and they take everything that I need. But so it's very, very, very short period of time that the cost of these drives is coming down. Every month, every few months, there's a significant price drop in the cost of SSDs. So it's not going to be very long before you'll be able to buy a thumb drive or a flash drive that will carry at least a terabyte of information. Another thing that's coming out that's making a tremendous difference in the way that most of us do searching online is that the large websites, all of the larger websites like MyHeritage and FamilySearch and Ancestry and Find My Past all now have record hints. There are other online family trees that also have record hints. Basically what these are is that they have automated procedures online that will try to search their particular database, all of their records that are indexed, and tell you, suggest records that may be applied to your ancestors. And I've seen the accuracy of these go up significantly, and they're very, very accurate now, particularly accurate back the first 100 to 150 years. The accuracy drops off as you go back more than 150 years. And it certainly drops off if you go outside of out of North and South America and England, the British Isles, and Western Europe. Other places that are being added, and as the record hints keep getting more accuracy and more coverage, they will become a major way of finding information. The good news is you'll have these record hints, and kind of the little bit of a challenge on that is that in order to get the benefit of all those record hints, you have a family tree on each of the programs that are providing record hints. So if you want record hints from MyHeritage, you really need your family tree on MyHeritage. If you want them from FamilySearch, you've got to have a family tree and the family tree. Put your information into the FamilySearch family tree and Ancestry and the others. So as I mentioned just very briefly previously, the challenge is having multiple family trees and being able to share information between and the sources that are acquired in each of these programs. Okay. One thing that we cannot overlook when we start talking about technology is a way into all of this technology. How do we deal with it? How do we deal with all these programs online and learning and understanding what they are and how they are? Well, we're very much involved, my wife and I are very much involved in this organization and website called the Family History Guide. And the Family History Guide is a structured sequence way of presenting information about genealogy. And in that, and it starts out with some basics, either computer basics, family history basics, and a quick start for getting into your family history. It also has detailed instructions for getting up and going on Family Search, Ancestry, MyHeritage, and Find My Past. So if you're looking for the manual on how to work with Family Search, here it is. It's on the Family History Guide. And also how to do research. What I think is one of the more valuable things on the website is the countries section and ethnic group sections. So if you want to know how to do genealogical research in a specific state or country or in a county in England, for example, then you go to that link on the Family History Guide, and there are detailed, and I mean detailed, thousands and thousands of resources on this program of detailed explanations of how to find the records, where the records are, and what to do with them. And this is your opening. This is the gateway that you have to get into and use all of these resources. And it's evolving. The website itself, the Family History Guide website, is evolving constantly. This is the address, thefhguide.com. It's how you get into the program, and I can only highly recommend it, not just because I'm associated with it. I'm a volunteer to help them because I see the value of this program, and I usually try to show everyone to go here to get answers to their questions that they can't seem to find any other place. Okay, well, thank you for watching. Do we have any questions that have come in that need to be answered?
As of right now, it looks like we don't. Oh, actually, you know what? They were asked. I have a question about your DNA chart. What were you were just referring to? Was that about your DNA chart?
Mm-hmm. No, I can get out of here and let me pull it up and show you what happens. Let me get up here to and I will pop this out big so you can see it. And here you go. When I took the DNA test, I took one from Ancestry and one from MyHeritage, and then this was my ethnicity estimate for MyHeritage. I'll blow that up so you can see. Basically, what you get is, oops, too much blown up, is a percentage listing of places. Now, where this comes in, I don't know how helpful it is, but basically where this comes in is that it will show you what you match up to their databases that have that they've profiled, in a sense, a profile of each of the areas of the world and focused in on that. I have some kind of surprising areas, but one of the things that happens that's surprising is that if you're from England, if your ancestry is from England, you have to remember that the Romans were in England, the Picts and the early people in England, and the Vikings and the Angles and the Saxons, and so I mean England is sort of a melting pot of a lot of different countries. And so if you're from England or some of these Western European countries, you may find out that you're really related to all sorts of people out there. Got somebody bouncing down here. Who's bouncing? Okay, any other questions?
As of right now, it looks like there are no other questions. James, thank you so much. Do you have anything else to close up?
You're welcome. No, stay tuned. We'll be back, look at the schedule, and we'll be back in July and in August, and then we'll probably schedule for September and October and possibly November, but then we're on our way back. And December's, I think the university mostly shuts down, so I'll be back in January. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, James Tanner. Um, and thank you, everyone, for joining us today. We hope this has been a valuable experience. If you wouldn't mind taking a moment to enter in some feedback for us, and if you have any suggestions for future webinars, comment on the left-hand side. Our next webinar, just to reiterate, will be What's New in the Family History Guide for July 2018 with Bob Taylor, and is scheduled for July 6th at 4 p.m. Mountain Daylight Time. Keep your eye out for this recording to go onto our YouTube channel on Monday, and make sure you subscribe to our Facebook and Twitter accounts to stay up to date on BYU Family History Library events. Thank you again for joining us.